Welcome. Welcome to a worthy review of the life and suffering of Sir Brante. Today, we'll be discussing why or why not you should purchase this game. Discussing the factors that you should consider before you commit to purchasing this. As a reference, the life and suffering of Sir Brante is currently marketed at $20 on Steam. For $20, is this game worth it? Well, that depends on several factors. Do you enjoy dark fantasy type settings? The illustration and artwork of The Life and Suffering of Sir Brante is similar to that of The Darkest Dungeon, a game that's also found on Steam. It's similar to Band of Blades and Blades in the Dark, and it's similar to other gothic, medieval, dark fantasy type settings, where the world is expressed in hues of black and white, where the choices are dark and sinister, and the odds are stacked against you. The second thing you should consider is, do you value an interactive role-playing game? For example, if you're much more of a COD player, much more of a Call of Duty player, and you enjoy action, you enjoy dynamic adventures, but you don't enjoy making certain decisions that affect your character. For example, you enjoy making decisions that are fixed on a railroad storyline, where everything is going to end up in a certain location. You just don't know what your character will respond, or how your character will respond to a situation. Then this game might not be the right game for you. This game is a little bit different. It's an interactive, character-based role-playing game, where you're taking the life of Sir Brante and retelling it to the audience. You are crafting his story. It's similar to Detroit Becoming Human. It's a story and interactive game released by Sony in 2018 that chronicles the life of different androids, as they pursue freedom and equal rights in a world that's dominated by humans. This game is much similar, except the fantasy is different, the artwork is different. The context and the mechanics of the game are the same. Now let's dive right into this game and assess using those two factors. First factor is this the right game type for you? Second factor is this game the right genre for you? Right? Genre would be the dark fantasy, and type would be the interactive, novel-based role-playing game. Alright, going right into the game here, we see that you first have to create your character name, Sir, and we're going to say Arthur here. Sir Arthur Brante. A classic callback to the Knights of the Round Table. We're going to go with Arthur. I don't know why it's not letting me use an A here, but we're going to say Arthur anyway. We're going to begin the game. Here you begin an introduction of the setting. So you see that you hold the fate of one man in your hands. You follow him from birth to death, and you describe how he lives his life. Now you'll understand throughout the context of the story that it's not the typical, if you've ever played Dungeons & Dragons, it's not the typical 5th edition type game where everything is this linear path. Instead, the choices you make in the beginning have a drastic effect on what choices you can make later on. For example, let's say, for instance, that you specialized in doing things that are devilish, doing things that are outrageous, that require a lot of courage, a lot of commitment, a lot of stubbornness, a lot of grit in order to, accomplish certain deeds. If you did those things in your childhood, you're better equipped in your adolescence, in your adult life, to do those deeds again. But let's say you had to walk away from certain other choices. For example, you had to walk away from choices that affected your perception, your ability to glean insight into a situation. Then, when you're tasked with those wisdom-based, intelligent-based tasks later on, you may not be as fully equipped. You may not have all the tools at your discretion in order to successfully complete those tasks. Now, the world of Sir Brante is context. The world of this story is a caste-based system where every challenge and every sphere that your character has access to is determined by birth. The old system, the system that this current world operates in, necessitates that caste. So it's going to be very difficult for, say, someone that was born a commoner
The
to
story
advance
of
to
my
a noble.
life remains written on these pages. My fate has always been my own. Every deed, every choice, and every person I met made me what I am. Could I have really taken a different path? Found a different calling? Altered the very course of history? And what price would I have to pay?
Now, at the end of time, your fingers are stained with ink, your breath grows ragged, and your hands are shaking, yet the words begin appearing on the page before you one by one, clinging together to form a chronicle of your own life. Who are you? And how did you reach this end? So you're at the end of your life telling about how the journey of your life, began, how the middle stage progressed, and how the end stage eventually, arrived at. You're telling the story of your life, and you're at the end right now. This essentially is a story-based game where you're reading a book, but they're describing it as a movie. They're describing it as choices, and you're basically writing the book as you read the book, which is, actually pretty cool. It's a little bit unique, a little bit outside of, say, Becoming Human Detroit, which is the benchmark game that you have to compare this to, because it's the most recent novel-based role-playing game that has gained wide popularity throughout the world. Advancing forward, you'll see that there are certain tabs here. These tabs are, you'll discover later on, unlocked as you progress further in the story. They describe events, they describe relationships, they describe the relationship of your house and how much wealth you have, how much reputation you have, how well you're perceived by others. They describe your family tree, it describes your relationship with your friends, it describes your relationship with your colleagues, your romantic life, with the law, and with different factions that you'll meet along the way. Also of the realm, also of peace and war, because during this time there's a transition between peace and war, between unity and revolt, between law and order, between the old system and the new system, between the commoners and the nobility. There's a lot of factors in this game, and you have to keep that in mind. If you prefer simple games, if you prefer games such as, for example, simple board games such as Risk, such as Sorry, games that don't require a lot of thought, then this might not be the game for you. But if you do prefer complex games, narrative-based games, if you prefer games that give you a lot of dynamic choices that affect the world around you, then this might be the game for you. You can honestly choose either one you want. There's no harm in choosing either one. Complexity and simplicity are both two ends of the same spectrum, and people have different tastes. They can enjoy different things. This game is definitely more skewed towards the complex version of the game genre. Now, you'll begin reading the story and you'll see that all these memories, all these events are starting to flood back, and basically the narrator is recounting how they advance through. You'll see that the artwork changes as you're going through the game, and you'll see that he's basically kind of narrating his life for you, and you're telling him how he progressed. Now in this element, what is the determines a man's destiny? So you have to choose that yourself. I'm going to base this on a deterministic viewpoint, where a man determines his own future based on the choices he makes. You can always choose other ones, such as society, and basically a nurture type argument, where the world determines what you do, or maybe a godly type argument. If you're religious, then this might be the smart path for you. Or there might be no destiny, where it's based clearly on probabilities, on statistics, on chance. So this might be more of a scientific, more of a random-based, chaotic-based approach. But I'm going to go with deterministic. Beautiful artwork and beautiful animations as well. This is something you wouldn't get if you were reading a novel, if you were reading a story. You wouldn't get these artworks, you wouldn't get these noises, this music. So it's definitely a leg up. Now $20 versus the price of a book. $20 is probably a bit more expensive. A book price, probably looking at $10. A movie ticket price, you're probably looking at maybe $7 to $10, depending on where you are and what part of the country you're at. So it's definitely a trade-off. $20 versus, it has a combination of book and movie elements, so it kind of depends on what your tastes are. Now, very, very important here. This is not the same length as a normal book. It's shorter. So if you do enjoy a book rather than this particular type of game, then you should just buy a book. Now, this is longer than a movie. A movie you typically have maybe 3 hours, maybe 3.5 if you're having to really stretch it and it's like an HD extended version. This game has several different parts, and you'll notice that I'm only going to play through the childhood because it's so long. It's going to take you several hours to get through, especially if you're reading it all out loud. So in the childhood, you have many decisions to make, and you'll find that you're in a family cohort. And in this cohort, there are many different dynamics representing different factions in the game, representing different viewpoints, different perspectives. And you'll see that the authors do a lot of painstaking work in order to illustrate this different viewpoint to you, so you can have the maximum amount of choices on what your character wants to be. If your character wants to be a knight in shining armor, who wants to be a noble spear, one that upholds truth and justice, then you can do that. If you want to be a little bit on the wild side, a little bit rebellious, then you can also do that. If you want to be religious, if you want to be spiritual, if you want to have a path that might be more of a clergy-based role, that option is also available. There are a lot of choices in here. Prologue. So you're growing up, in different chapters of this book, you'll experience different things, and each quality shapes the protagonist, and it'll eventually determine your stats. Now, if you have ever played Dungeons & Dragons Adventures League or Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition or any role-playing game, you'll understand that you are allocated points and stats in the beginning that determine how your character performs in certain activities. This is a little bit different, but also the same as that. It's same as you also get stat points, but the difference is those stat points are allocated based on choices, based on decisions, rather than based on your time spent on them. You don't spend any time doing something. You instead spend choices. You spend your basically activities. And you'll see that during each section of this game, it kind of progresses through the years. You have a limited amount of activities that you can progress through, and those activities determine your stats. For example, in each chapter as well, you also have the opportunity to perform certain things. So for example, here's a fencing lesson. If you have a determination of greater than or equal to 4, you have the chance to train with your father and have a fencing lesson, even though you are technically a commoner. A commoner is not supposed to have a fencing lesson, but you might have this opportunity if you really show your determination. You also have the chance to die. Might not be a good thing, unless you enjoy dying. And this firstly reveals how you can die multiple times in this game. You can actually die 3 times before you die a 4th true death. And so this game gives you a few chances, but there are also times where it just kills you outright. This game is relentless. This game is a dark fantasy, gothic style. It is relentless at times, but it's also forgiving at times. It lets you experience the game without, truly just paying the price and perishing at the first sign of trouble. It also gives you different abilities that'll allow you to progress later on in the game. That'll be very important. For example, here, Nobleman's Sacrament, you attempt to challenge the Sacred Order and seize a noble lot. A lot is basically your caste. Are you a noble caste system? Are you in the noble section? Are you in the commoner section? How about the clerical section? This is it. You're challenging the system. You're a commoner right now, but you'll discover later on that your father is actually a noble. You start with no determination and no perception. You're a baby. Obviously, you don't start with anything. Like, if there was a baby that started with all this determination, like, what the heck? That'd be crazy. And then a number of debts, right? So you have a few debts in your back pocket that you can use. You also have willpower. This is representing your strength of action and your points that you can allocate in order to advance in the story. Now, at this point, we're nearing the end of the allotted time for this worth it section, but you have to decide whether or not you appreciate this game. Now, at the end of this game, there'll be a free link to the demo section that will allow you to play this game and experience it for yourself. Hopefully, you've enjoyed enough of this game and had enough analysis to make a decision for your own tastes. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you enjoy the dark fantasy, gothic style artwork of The Darkest Dungeon, of Band of Blades, of Blades in the Dark? Or do you enjoy a more juvenile, do you enjoy a more colorful section? Because this entire story is in black and white. Do you enjoy a narrative-based, complex game such as Detroit: Becoming Human? Or do you enjoy a more railroad game, such as COD or such as any of the other military-based popular first-person shooter games? If you enjoy the complex narrative-based game, then this might be the game for you. If you don't, that's also cool. And then also, do you enjoy more book reading, more narration of book-style reading, or do you enjoy a more movie-style reading? This is kind of a blend of the two. It kind of depends on what kind of tastes you have, and hopefully this has better informed you to make, a better decision as you're purchasing this. As I said, it's $20 on Steam. Also $18 limited time sale, but that'll probably expire soon. And it's only a $2 discount, so it doesn't really matter too much. It's your decision. I hope this review helped you, and please subscribe for more. I'll also be running through a playthrough of this game so you can experience more to make your decision. Thank you very much. Have a great one.